Welcome back to another True Crime Friday. As we discussed last week, it was either going to be coming back to the Kiely Rodni case. Sorry, I had to go and correct that, make sure that was heard. I just want to really make sure, just confirming that. Not trying to be rude. Sorry if I came off as a little rude. We're going to be looking a little bit deeper into a few different routes on this case. What killed Kiely Rodni? Was she drowned? No. I don't suspect that's truly it. So then we have to be looking at the autopsy again. And, well, with the lack of water in her lungs, there ends up being a problem there. So, that being said, a few things we're going to be looking at tonight before I get into more on what the narrative is showing. Not necessarily proving, but showing and showcasing, showboating, if you will, even grandstanding a bit. This is what it is. We're going to be looking at why was she in the back seat? What could have been a reason why she was in the back seat? Top of that, we're going to go and try and figure out why her boot or shoe or whatever it was on her her footwear and her sock were off on one foot only. And it's been brought up already in the comments on the first part of this video. And I do want to go and correct myself. You are correct. For those that were saying Prosser, and I said Boca. I got a little confused on it. There's a whole lot going on with this case. For those that follow me on the Murder of the Gray State series, which is on the Crowley triple homicide case, you'll know that I do mix some things up from time to time, not intentionally. I do tend to correct myself, but I do mess up from time to time. Not intentional. It's just there's a whole lot going on. And, of course, my live events are not scripted, so that's the big thing to go and take away from this. This is completely unscripted. So let's start getting into this. Oh, and the last thing, of course, I forgot to go mention this, we're going to be looking at the autopsy again. There's a good reason for it. By looking into the autopsy again, this is where this comes in as crucial. Is we have to go and figure out, okay, well, did Kiely have water in her lungs? I just answered that already. Sure, she didn't. And there's a few other parts of that case we need to go and part of the autopsy we have to go and consider. Oh, my internet is just loving me tonight. Oh, I'm loving this right now. Any second now, and I'll be able to go and get to you guys. This is annoying. There it goes. And in this case, we're going to be using some of the later we're going to go over into it, but we have to use some of the things that, and for those that were not on my Twitch streams when I did discuss Gabby Petito, and I discussed that case. That's one of those cases where I was 100%. This is what was going on. Police found it out late. Don't understand how they did, but they did. So, but I was discussing that in real time, just some predictions. I didn't have enough concrete proof that I felt comfortable just going and saying, yeah, this is what happened. So I didn't jump in at that point. I wanted to go and find a little more proof before I did that. That way we could actually have some solid movement on what was going on. But I did announce it on stream. So takeaway is I did do it. So for those that didn't actually, you guys weren't on Twitch watching my content there, it's okay. I did do that case. I am going to be bringing that case back up for reference because depending on what my schedule changes to potentially next week or the week after, things are going to change a little bit. And because Comic Wars is coming back on the 20th or something like this, it's that week, the week of the 20th or 21st, something like this. True crime videos they're gonna still be coming in, but they're gonna be coming every few weeks, most likely. I might still do them weekly. I just kind of got to figure out my own schedule, so you're gonna have to bear with me on that one. Let's see. Where did I put the full one? Did I not put the full one in here? There I did. Yep. Let me get this one up. Alrighty, there we go. Hey, how's it going, Deb? Alright, so start switching a couple things up here. So, what do we know the narrative is? Well, that they're saying she drowned, as you can see right here. Where is it? I love how they're not mentioning her dad. That's really weird. Blah, 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 blah. There it is. Cause of death. Drowning. That's what they're saying. Why are they saying that, though? This is a young girl that was found in the backseat of a car, in her car. She had her learner's permit. She was out much later than she was supposed to be, apparently. And she went missing on August 5th. Wasn't found until, I believe it was August 21st, 2022. And the only reason they're saying she drowned is because they found her underwater in the backseat of her car. I believe it was her Honda CR-V, if I'm not mistaken. And she was in the back seat, and the car had water in it. It was upside down. They found her in water. They're just going to go along with the whole, well, she drowned. Look at the autopsy report. Where's water in her lungs? There's none. Which is odd. All right. So, make sure let's see. Right, and that's kind of a big problem when it comes to drowning. Except there is such thing as things like the dry drown. There's suffocation, but there's specific signs. Now, where I focused last week to kind of prove my point a little bit is you see some really strange activity in the brain. You see a little bit in the lungs. They don't really do a whole lot with the heart, but they do go over it. But there's a lot they could have tested for, and the majority of the testing came from the liver. If they were testing kidneys, they would have found some other stuff, potentially. If my hunch is correct, of course. So, let's go over this whole thing. This is a part of it. We got to go back over this thing. So we're going to start right here. So this was reported by Deputy Jay Mackey on August 21st, 2022, 6:58 p.m. And this is at Prosser Creek Reservoir near these GPS coordinates in Truckee, California. The initial reporting of her going missing was on the 6th. She was reported literally the next day. Hours into the next day, mind you. Then they found her, and her date of death they put down as the 21st. Well, we know she died before that. Her body was decomposing. We don't know how much fish and the underwater world was eating at her. We don't really know. They didn't really describe in detail about these things. All you hear is she was decomposing underwater. But they also proclaimed her time of death was at 8:33 p.m. after they found her. But that was his time arrival on scene. They didn't get her fully pulled out for another couple hours. Kind of an issue. Well, an hour and a half, roughly. So, was she an organ tissue donor? No. Contagious disease? Did she have any? No. Medical information? Unknown. Okay. Cause of death? Pending investigation. Was she a smoker? Yes. Was there alcohol use? Yes. Well, they say this because they found ethanol in her system. Was she a smoker? Okay, sure. She vaped. Okay. Do we know what she was smoking, though? But they just list her as a smoker. It doesn't really... Was she smoking marijuana? Well, they found some THC in her system, the Delta THC or Delta 09 or something like this. THC. Okay. Remains identified by pending forensic pathologist report. No marks or scars or tattoos. Personal physician, they say unknown. They know who it is. They know who the dentist is. But they're saying unknown. Next of kin is Lindsay Rodni Nyman, which is her mother, and Daniel Rodney. Keep in mind they mentioned that only the mother and not the father were contacted at California Highway Patrol's Truckee office at 9:45 p.m. on the 21st of August 2022 and notified there was a decedent located in the vehicle registered to Kiely Rodni. Positive identification was not able to be made at that time. Based on circumstantial evidence, the decedent was believed to be Kiely Rodni. So they were able to go and say it's Kiely, but it's her car, the shoe fits kind of thing. They were advised of the pending pathologist report for confirmation of identity and cause of death. The deputy was called to respond to Prosser Creek Reservoir to a peninsula southwest of Prosser Family Campground, which is allegedly where the party was supposed to be at. That's where you got to go and judge distance. That's where you got to go over these types of things. That's where you go over, where was this party supposed to be at? Where was the car found? We're going to try and get into some map work, hopefully tonight, but it's most likely going to end up being next week. For those following on Facebook, you guys can always look up Strange Investigations. Make sure to follow there, because I'm going to be posting some things about this case up on there over the next couple days. Specifically about the mapping, we need to go and start gauging distances, because now we're going to start putting together the timeline. We have enough that we can. I just have yet to see a good timeline yet. So, as I did with the David Crowley case, I compiled what was known, I added what I was able to find and discover and piece together. Right? So this is the help of the group. So for those that have any information, please drop them in the, drop time frames and things like this. Drop them in the comments. It's a good time to do that. Is then once you guys comment, I can collect those. I can put those in there. I can go and double check all this, and I can get that put into the timeline. We can get a PDF going around. That way everybody can see the timeline. This is what happened at this time, this date, yada, yada, yada. All right. He was advised a female decedent was located within the cargo space of the vehicle Kiely Rodni was reported to have been driving. He responded to the location to handle the coroner's case. He arrived on scene at approximately 7 p.m. and FBI agents, FBI crime scene technicians, Placer County Sheriff's Office deputies, California Highway Patrol officers, Truckee Police Department officers, and detectives from Nevada County Sheriff's Office were all near a tow truck. Now, that being said, why is he so late to it? Okay, that's a little weird. Why is he showing up so late? But okay. So he spoke to Detective Sonnier, who advised him that law enforcement divers had hooked the tow truck's winch to a vehicle under the water and were assisting with recovering the vehicle. The deputy waited until the vehicle was removed from the water and was given permission to begin his investigation. Body position. There was a white female decedent located in the rear cargo compartment of the silver 2013 Honda CR-V. The right leg of the decedent was against the pillar of the back seat and resting near the headrest. Yes, I will be also posting, based on this description here, I will be posting an image hopefully tomorrow, if not Sunday. I don't have an image of this, but I'm going to be... Basically, here's a layout of the Honda CR-V. This is everything we know about it. This is how the body was set up, and we're going to go and gauge it as best we can based on measurements. So, shouldn't take too long to put together. Might even be able to do that tonight and get it out tonight. So make sure to follow on the Facebook page. That's where you're going to see all this stuff. Remainder of the descent was behind the seats and not visible from outside the vehicle. FBI agents and technicians donned Tyvek suits and protective gear and entered into the vehicle. The body was removed under this person's supervision by FBI agents and FBI crime scene technicians. Wow, okay. FBI is actually doing their job for once. The body was placed into a large black vinyl body bag, visually inspected, and the bag was sealed. No items were removed from the deceased person, and the remains were later transported by Truckee Tahoe Mortuary directly to the Placer County Morgue. Okay. Now, let's take a look at this. Body condition. Okay, because what are we seeing here? What do we know about this? So this is just what this person's saying about the body. Now, does it say anything about decomposition? No. It does not. Okay, so we have nothing here saying anything about body decomp. This is another thing we have to pay attention to at this point. And you are 100% Deb, because yeah, they don't do their job. They don't do it very well at all. They just kind of just, okay, bag and tag it, you know. So, the body showed obvious signs of bloating, lividity, and decomp. There was skin sloughing, and no positive identification could be made due to the decomposition present on the face. So, we can go and look at body decomp. It's not going to help at this point. Because now you have to start looking at what does water do, okay? You have to look at, is it more acidic? Is it more alkaline? There's a lot of things that go into this. So we can't really gauge how long she was in the water just based on her decomp. Alone, at least. We can still use it, but we have to kind of give it more of a, you know, like I think it's going to be about a 2 or 3 day, either way kind of thing, based on what it is. And we have to also look at the salt content. There's a lot of things you have to look at when bodies are found in water. There's a lot more you have to consider. Now, then you also got to look, okay, well, the windows are down, so were fish eating away at the body? Things like this. This can also adjust the time. We also don't know, was there any kind of bacteria or any kind of newer bacteria or anything like this released? That maybe it's like a flesh-eating type thing. Well, that can go and affect this. How much of the body was underwater? Was it all underwater? If it was all underwater, then you have other things to go and look at. There's mold, there's algae, there's all sorts of other things you're going to have to go and take into consideration here. That being said, we know 3 things about this. Body is it's going through decomposition, which that just means, okay, the body's dead. That's it. Starts on decomp. Okay, so we know that. Lividity, and then bloating. Now, that being said, we've looked at this through the David Crowley case, the lens of that. And what do we know about bloating? Well, bloating is like a stage 2, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. That happens pretty early on. I believe it's after 8 hours, I think it is. His body goes stiff and it undergoes a few other processes, and bam, then you get the bloating and yada, yada, yada. And the body starts leaking shortly after that. So, but we can't really gauge the time frame. Did she go missing the 5th or 6th? Pretty good chance, I'd argue. Next, we got mortuary. Detective Saunier told the deputy the decedent was going to be transported directly to the Placer County Morgue and scheduled for examination on Tuesday. No mortuary photographs were taken by this investigator. All right, so you go through the rest of this. It's statements, remains removed by this person here. Here's the vehicle. So we're going to go over that real quick. So the silver 2013 Honda CR-V was going to be towed by the FBI and taken to their facility in Sacramento for additional processing. Why? In my opinion, they don't need to do that quite yet. That should have actually went directly. If they're going to do it, send it to, you can send it to Truckee. I mean, there's all sorts of other things you can do. But once again, I'd like to know why they just instantly just took it there. That's a little curious to me. Deputy was advised the vehicle will then be returned to the Truckee, California Highway Patrol office for their vehicle accident investigation team to perform their investigation, which is basically they're going saying this is an accident. That's them literally showing it's an accident. FBI is already saying, we're going to go take a look at it, and then you guys are going to get it for your guys' accident investigation. That's already the start of the cover-up right there. They're all here before this deputy who's conducting the investigation. And then they're going to say, no. You're basically going to mark this as an accident. That screams there's something else going on here. Well, I'm trying to go and, my bad. I apologize for that, Tassie. Yeah, you are 100% yes. It in the back hatch. So, kind of like the trunk. So, good catch on that one. All right, let's continue. All right, so August 23rd, approximately 10:20 in the morning. Deputy Damian Norden received a phone call from Captain Sam Brown. Captain Brown told him the destination in case 122-02506 had been positively identified as Kiely Rodni. After I spoke to Captain Brown, I called the destinant's parents, Daniel Rodni and Lindsay Rodni Nyman. I offered to meet with Daniel and Lindsay, and they both told me to update them on the phone. I told Daniel and Lindsay the destinant had been positively identified as Kiely Rodni. Okay, 2 days later, they were able to do that. And if we look at what is August 23rd, if it'll load. Let's see. That's Tuesday. So there we go. So this is after that 10:20 in the morning is when this happened. Once again, this is why we need the timeline. All right, so 23rd at 8:30 in the morning. They removed these right here. All right, let's go over this now. This supplemental investigation. This was conducted or reported by Sergeant Jason Klinkenbeard. Cool name. I'm not trying to make fun when I say this, but seriously sounds like a Lord of the Rings character. That's awesome. So congrats on that, Sergeant Jason Klinkenbeard. I seriously love your name. It's awesome. But this is on October 12th, 2022 at 9:30 in the morning. A report was forwarded to the Coroner Division of Deputy Mackey with the Patrol Division. On August 23rd, 2022, Placer County Forensic Pathologist Dr. Gregory Reiber, MD, performed an autopsy on the remains of Kiely Mai Rodni. Positive identification of the destinant had been made by Detective Josephine Strachan during the autopsy. Detective Strachan was present during the autopsy and documented her observations and the method of identification in a supplemental report to the original missing persons report. And there it is, right there, NCSO case number 1220-2364, supplemental report number 14. I've recently reviewed the pathologist's final report of autopsy, which listed the cause of death in this case as drowning. There were no other significant contributing conditions listed. I conferred with Detective Saunier, and he told me there was no indication of foul play regarding the criminal investigation into the death of Kiely. There it is. Okay, so I do say it every now and then. I really do. My bad. Manner of death in this case has been determined to be accidental. See what I'm saying? Right here, right there. They're already saying that. It's a little odd. They even say this, foul play regarding to the criminal investigation into the death of Kiely. They're saying right there, as I've indicated last 2 times, I believe it is. They're saying this is a criminal investigation, but they're like, no, it's accidental and she drowned. Okay. All right, let's continue on. This is where you gotta kind of figure, okay, well, how long does it take for these things to burn out in the body? Okay. This ethanol in her body, decomp does that too. It's not a whole lot. And they're just presumptive positive on nicotine, caffeine, and cotinine. And then they're saying she's positive for delta 9 carboxy THC. So we're going to do some backtracing on this. What is delta 9? What is it? Carboxy THC. All right. Oh, I love this. My internet is really not liking me tonight. It's a compound responsible for impairment. This compound is highly unstable and breaks down into non-active metabolites called carboxy THC. Unfortunately, carboxy THC compound can last for months in your system and still test positive for THC. Carboxy THC has absolutely no impairment effect whatsoever, so this could have just been in her system. You could throw this one out, essentially. But let's continue. So what's a high level of carboxy? Levels greater than 500 nanograms per milliliter suggest chronic and recent use. Chronic use causes accumulation of THC and COOH in adipose tissue such that it is excreted into the urine for as long as 30 to 60 days from the time chronic use is halted. It's not smoking all the time, but we're going to look. 500 nanograms per milliliter. Let's say there. And this is the funny part here. Reported limit 20 nanograms per gram. She very well could have, in my opinion, I'm pretty sure this can be running through hotboxing or being around somebody. Hell, she could have smoked it and it could have been a while. She doesn't have much left, which means it was probably within that month range, I would guess. But that's after chronic use. Chronic just means repeated. So she didn't really have anything in there. Positive because she had it in her system. Could have been from a while ago. She's a teenager, let's be honest. Teenagers, what are they using in high school? What are they using, when they're partying with their friends and stuff? It does happen. I'm not saying it always does, and I'm not saying all teenagers do this, but it is common. Just like high school parties and all this, what gets brought out? Alcohol, generally. It's a common occurrence. And let's continue. So Catherine brought this up. The fact is, this right here gets tossed real quick. These are low levels. This right here is her highest, by far. And they're being more exact when it came to ethanol. This is from Decomp. Guarantee you. Caffeine. She's a teenager. She could have had a soda. Let's be honest. She could have drank some soda earlier in the day. This burns off quickly. So once again, all this is, a lot of it's out of her system. She had recently smoked. Now this can tell us a few things here. She'd been vaping, right? Was this nicotine? Or is it marijuana? Didn't have any marijuana going on. We can see this from the carboxy THC. It's low. Therefore, that being said, we can already assume she was vaping some kind of nicotine. More than likely. However, that being said, what do we have from the vehicle? Not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot. What do we have to go on? All of her stuff was out inside of the lake. Everything's in the lake. What do we have? And they haven't found everything. So let's continue. Oh, we have a lot of people in chat tonight, don't we? Who's all in chat tonight? Oh. It's not saying. Okay. Totally cool. So here's our little reference comments we got to go over. Delta 9 carboxy THC inactive metabolite, mind you. Just pay attention to the inactive part. That's a big thing here. Delta 9 THC is the principal psychoactive ingredient in marijuana hashish. Delta 9 carboxy THC, THCC, is the inactive metabolite of THC. Okay. That's all they're saying here. Ethanol, so the ethyl alcohol, ethanol, drinking alcohol, is a general nervous system depressant and can cause effects such as impaired judgment, reduced alertness, and impaired muscular coordination. Didn't have a lot in our system, so that wasn't doing anything. Ethanol can also be a product of decomposition and degradation of biological samples. Boom, right there. That's all this is. Now, it's a low level, but keep in mind, her body is also intaking a bunch of water. We'll get into this a little bit more because now this is going to come into decomp. Now, this is the interesting part. This is where we can use water because then you've got certain waters, they don't absorb well into the body. They take longer. Okay, more salt, you start basically sucking the water out of things. You start sucking the moisture out of things. Well, this isn't a very salty lake, or reservoir, my apologies. So we'd have to go and find out what basically the properties of the water are. Then we can start looking at decomp time. Why? Because, well, her body's absorbing water. It is causing decomp. Now, we don't know what level of decomp. It doesn't say. But we're going to continue as there's more. Is there any more comments? Nope. All right, so this is Brianna L. Peterson, PhD, that did this. Oh yeah, here we go. We'll read this. Analysis, summary, and reporting limits. All the following tests were performed for this case. For each test, the compounds listed were included in the scope. The reporting limit listed for each compound represents the lowest concentration of the compound that will be reported as being positive. That seems kind of counterproductive in my opinion. The compound is listed as none detected. It is not present above the reporting limit. Please refer to the positive findings section of the report for those compounds that were identified as being present. Now we're going to have some fun with this. So, analysis by high-performance liquid chromatography. I can't say that word. Chromatography. Yeah, I can't say whatever. Tandem mass spectrometry. My goodness, I can't speak. We get the 11-hydroxy delta 9 THC. Hydroxy delta 9 THC. Interesting. And that's at 4 nanograms per gram. Delta 9 THC, no reporting limit, which means none. It's not applicable, at least, so they didn't really check it. And that report is delta 9 THC, canceled due to sample matrix problem. Could be a lot of things on that one, but they basically couldn't test for it. Then you got the delta 9 carboxy THC. That's 20 nanograms per gram. So you got to get these measurements. This is where measurements are going to matter too. But we know it's not per milliliter. And I'll show you why. Okay, 1 gram of water equals exactly 1 milliliter. Do you guys remember how much you guys got to have for this, though? It's well under 500 nanograms per milliliter, which comes out to 50, if I'm not mistaken. So if we're going to go with 20 nanograms per gram, let's take a look. It's like 2 point. See what I mean? I mean, this is pretty ridiculous. This is like 0.000. Okay, so like 8 zeros in the 2, if I'm not mistaken. Not a lot. And this has got to be, and you get the 500. Oh, what was it? To be impaired. Okay. This is a high level, and this is going to be somebody they're smoking it, right? That's going to be 500 nanograms per milliliter, so that's going to be, I don't even know how much, but it's not a whole lot. Okay, so this is levels greater than that are going to show that, so. Let's take a look. What was it again? What was the exact thing? Nanogram to milliliter. Conversion. I'm loving my internet right now so very much. I do apologize for all the lag. All right. Yeah, basically what it is, that's not a whole lot, but it's still, there's only 20 nanograms. It's far less than this, which means she'd used a while ago. Just breaking that down. Let's continue on. Now, these next ones are going to be a little interesting. Test 50014TI for cocaine and metabolites confirmation. Tissue is liver tissue. So the analyte, you got the benzoylecgonine, 200 nanograms per gram. Coca-ethylene, which I believe is from cocaine itself anyways. I believe from the coca plant specifically. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure. That's 160 nanograms per gram. And you got cocaine, which is 160 nanograms per gram. Strange. But look at what you can find cocaine on. That also begs the question, who is she partying with? Is this a common occurrence for her? Was it? Then you got to start looking at the people she was friends with. So people that are all like on her Instagram and things like this is where I would suggest start keeping track on those things. Start taking notes. Look at those people that are close to her. Not only on Instagram, Facebook, things like this. Check the social media. This is where we're going to find some things, I think. I think this is where we're going to really start finding some really, really suspicious activity. That would be my suggestion. So, but if she's set to private, nobody's got access, well, that sucks. All right. But once again, cocaine, the current theory is basically every single dollar bill that has been used, at least for a while, has got traces of cocaine on them. You know, because, well, what do people do? Well, they roll up a dollar bill or $5 bill, whatever it is, and they snort cocaine out of it, or from it, you know, so, or using it. So it's one of those things that it's like, okay, well, is that possible? And can that be absorbed in the skin? Yes, it can. But this is 160 nanograms per gram. Then we have to look at usage on this. Is this a recent usage? If she barely used any, how much did she get? How long had it been? So this is where we can get these questions answered here, and these are good questions to be asked. You know, to be asking here, because if she was at this alleged party, well, for one, not a whole lot of photos from that, and not a whole lot of people coming forward about it. That doesn't raise alarm bells at all. Then, of course, you have the other thing that, what was her name? Sammy, I believe she was saying there were some suspicious guys there. It's like some older guys and all this. Well, that happens at high school parties. You do see some older, like, college guys and things like this show up. But I don't suspect that was the case here. I suspect this is something a little more sinister. Personally, I do. So now you got these like harder drugs. Now, can a high schooler get access to cocaine? Of course. Quite easily. I mean, when it comes down to it, a lot of these drug dealers, they like to hang out in schools anyway. It's like they hang out there. They'll go and usually get somebody that's inside the school that's already dealing drugs. Bring them part of the fold. Now they're starting to go and get money from cocaine sales now. All right, but let's continue. Now we have test 8052TI, postmortem, expanded tissue, forensic, liver tissues we're looking at. So now they're looking at the salicylates. And this is analysis by colorimetry. And that's all they're looking for. And there's 800 micrograms per gram. Interesting. Like I said, these things, they matter. They give you this technical name, and a lot of people don't look them up. Cocaine, different story, but cocaethylene, that's all I'm saying. Then you got analysis by enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, benzodiazepines, buprenorphine metabolite, cannabinoids. There's 40 nanograms per gram. Where do we see that from? We don't see 40 with delta-9 carboxy, which means this is something, it's like a strain, like a weird strain probably. Cocaine metabolites, which you'll also find people putting cocaine in their marijuana. So there's that too. Opiates, oxycodone, or so oxymorphone. You know, I mean, you're seeing some really strange things here, because now you look at the cocaine metabolites, it's 80 nanograms, which means they probably tested half of the using the gas chromatography mass spectrometry, and they checked for cocaine. All right, so now let's read this little side note here. This is so true. Computers are definitely doing their own thing all the time. Once again, I do apologize for the lag, everybody. Analysis by gas chromatography, mass spectrometry. For the following is a general list of analyte classes included in the gas chromatographic screen. The detection of any specific analyte is concentration dependent. Note, not all known analytes included in each specified class are included. Some specific analytes outside of these classes are also included. For a detailed list of all analytes and reporting limits included in this screen, please contact NMS Labs. Amphetamines, analgesics, opioid and non-opioid, anorectics, antiarrhythmics, anticholinergics, anticonvulsants, antidepressants, antihistamines, antiparkinsonians, antipsychotics, antitussives, antivirals, cardiovascular agents, non-digitalis, muscle relaxants, and stimulants, amphetamine-like, and others. So, And it goes over the same thing here. Analysis by headspace gas chromatography. Acetone. There's an interesting one. Isopropanol. Methanol. Ethanol. Very, very strange ones, but that requires further investigation. Let's continue on. And of course, they go on to say Kiely, oh yeah, no, she drowned. She drowned. This is what happened. So, but now we got some things here. She's 66 inches tall. Okay, so now we have, she's what, 5'6", if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, 48, and then 60 inches would be 5 feet. So yeah, she's 5'6". Well, this gives us some information here, because now, when we're putting together what it's, basically how her body was positioned, now we can start to look at things a little bit different. Now, there's like I said, there's some things when it comes down to this that, okay, you can go and speculate, okay, well, could her body have just, when the car was flipping, couldn't her body have just moved? No, not likely. And I'll show why. I will show why when it comes to that next Friday, we will discuss it. But that's the big thing to go and really look at here, is her body couldn't have done that. In fact, the likelihood is like, you can't say 0, but it's very, very low. So many different things have to come into this, not to mention her weight, 103, okay? Very, very light. And what did they do? They did the toxicology, stock tissue, and then just did liver. Could they have done kidney? Absolutely. Could they have done brain? Absolutely. Could they have done lung? Absolutely. Those would have been key ones to use. Why brain? Well, now you're going to be looking at oxygen deprivation. This matters. There's certain specific things. When you drown, that's oxygen deprivation for the mind, for the brain. That matters towards it. Then you got the lung. Was there water in the lung? Once again, they didn't include this. Checking the blood. Checking the urine. Why didn't they check any of this? This all should have been checked. Muscle, maybe not. Spleen, possibly not. Lung, kidney, brain, for sure. Should have been. Blood, that should have been. Urine, why not? If they're saying she was heavy drinking, urine. Check it. Check to see if she had any urine. She didn't have any urine, different story. But she has urine, check it. Check her stomach contents even. What did she eat? Maybe somebody put some cocaine in her food. Who knows? Who knows? There's a lot of different things that could have happened. All right, now we're going to go back over all of this here. Her clothing. Upper body was covered by a spaghetti strap black French cut bodysuit. She wore a black bodysuit. Don't worry, like I said, I'm going to be listing a lot of this stuff. When it comes to the timeline and all this, you guys are going to see this. And like the full timeline, you'll get to see how this all kind of pans out. This is not looking good for the police because they didn't do a good job. I'm not saying they had any part necessarily covering it up per se. I'm not saying anything like this. I'm not even alluding to it. But I'm saying here they didn't do a good job in this investigation. They failed. A pair of black briefs are on the lower body as well. The lower body is also covered by green twill pants with a black belt through the belt loops bearing multiple rivets. The belt appears buckled. A gray-green sneaker is on the right foot along with a multicolored ankle-length sock. A matching sneaker accompanies the body within the bag. A matching left sock is inside the loose left sneaker, except for the shoe being off the left foot. The clothing appears relatively normal in position. So this isn't somebody that was necessarily, you could argue pretty easily, she wasn't being sexually assaulted. Wasn't that at all. But her left shoe and her left sock off, these are ankle length socks, so they're not super long. But it's a little interesting. Why is it off? Personal property includes a white metal hoop through a piercing in the left ala nasi, so in the left nose, the nostril. The right ear has 3 white metal hoops through the helix and a small crescent moon. We've already gone over this, so now this is where you go over the piercings, rings, her jewelry. The unembalmed body is that of a slender white female in a state of moderate decomposition. Now, this is the interesting part here. Moderate decomposition. Okay. Once again, when looking at this, she was in water. Plain and simple. Okay, so things are going to be a little funky when it comes to this. Okay. Little funky for sure. Let's see, where is it? There is generalized sloughing of epidermis, so of her skin. It's top layer of her skin is sloughing, so she's starting to go through the slippage and all this going and happening. Except for portions of plantar skin, which readily separate from the bottoms of the feet and bear multiple toenails. Once again, this does come down to definitions and things like this. You got to know these things. A separately submitted segment of sloughed epidermis from one of the hands also bears a single thumbnail. There is mild bloating of the body and generalized discoloration of the exposed dermis, ranging from pale green or gray-green to dark maroon. This is all giving us a little bit closer to what her body's actually undergoing. Once again, she was in water, so things are going to be a little different. Decomp occurs entirely different in water than it would on the land. Then you have to also look at it, was the body inside or outside? And there's all sorts of different differences on this. But this is inside of a car, but it's open. But it's still inside of a car, so it's almost like in a home, there's airflow and constant traffic of air and potentially people or animals, things like this. This is where this gets it's similar in that sense, but it's different because you have essentially a body inside of liquid. Now this is where you got to look at things like this. Now it's going to be very disgusting here, but it's like, for instance, when you are brining meat, for instance, that's high salt content. Look what it does to the meat, though, especially when you're brining and you've got some kind of a liquid in there with it too. I mean, you can see how it changes, and it makes the meat feel different when you pull it out. It acts differently almost. It cooks differently even, and when you eat it, it tastes different than just regular meat because it's absorbed things. It could be just the salt. You'll see if you just brine something in salt, I mean, it gets tough. It's real tough because there's no moisture. It just removes the moisture. Once again, that's why you have to look at the chemical properties of the reservoir. That's a reservoir. Now we have to go find out, is this a man-made reservoir or is it not? It doesn't appear to be, but these things matter. What are they doing with the water there? Is the water being treated there and allowed to sit, or is it going from there to be treated? These things matter. Okay, continue on. There is no remaining rigor mortis and no lividity pattern is discernible, yet they said there's lividity. A strong odor of decomposition surrounds the remains. No post-mortem insect activity is present, which means there's no water insects getting in there. Which is good, because, I mean, you're looking at different kinds of larvae, different kinds of insects that live in the water. They weren't touching her. If this had been months, springtime going into summer, midsummer, things like this is like the end of summer. Things are already kind of, the larvae has already basically become adults. The subject is normocephalic. There is no apparent external head trauma. What about internal? The scalp hair is almost completely sloughed due to decomposition and consists of wavy blonde hair up to about 22 inches in maximum length. So now you can start looking, okay, well, what her haircut was like. Facial features are distorted by decomposition and postmortem positioning. The eyes are discolored from decomposition, although there is definition between the corneas and the conjunctivae. Anterior chambers of the eyes are discolored from decomposition, and original color of the irises and definition of the pupils is obscured, which means it's probably like that really pale white you'd see. The conjunctivae vary from pale maroon to pale green. See, right there, so that's kind of, yeah. Soft tissues of the nose appear normally developed but distorted from decomposition. Both nares are patent, which means they're still there. There is no palpable nasal fracture. Interesting. This this could be something here, right there. No palpable nasal fracture. Interesting. Other mid-facial bones are also palpably intact. The ears are softened from decomposition but appear symmetrical. A small amount of fluid is present at the right external auditory meatus, apparently from decomposition. Apparently, right? There's no apparent discharge from the left ear. Teeth are natural and in good condition. There's discoloration of the crowns of the teeth to a pale pink stain from decomposition. That makes sense. Once again, this comes down to time. How long has her body been there? Now, where I'm getting at this, I should, hypothetically, should be able to kind of narrow it down a little bit. Roughly, I think it's going to be within probably about a week's time. I think that's just kind of, that's a really big guess there about how long we can go and figure some things, because we got a lot of decomp data here. You got the bloating. Now we can go and start figuring what kind of water would this be, and then I can go see if there's any water data. If anybody's got any, if you guys have got the information, you guys can go out to Prosser, the reservoir, go and take a look at the pH there. Now you also got to think the car went in there too, which is going to change some things right there too. The immediate vicinity of that area, you've got gasoline, you've got oil, you've got things coming out from the engine, you've got your transmission, you've got your coolant. This is going to adjust the crap out of the pH. It's going to adjust the chemical composition of the water there, especially in the immediate vicinity. You have anything else you might have had in the car. You had a lithium battery that apparently the laptop was, from what I understood, the laptop was found in that lake. Well, there's a lithium battery in there. That does things to water. You can see where this is going. That's a good chunk of material that went in there too. So, of all this. So that's changing the chemical composition of that general vicinity is going to be, I would argue, pretty high. So that can also adjust some things when it comes into checking the body out. Why is her decomp taking this long when it should have been taking this long, for instance? Instead of it being a week, it ends up being 3 days, right? Weird things like that can occur just with simple things like that. And then you also got to figure how long did it take for the car to flip. How'd the car get that far in, for instance? But I digress. Let's check, see if there's anything new in chat. Okay. All right. The oral mucous membranes show deterioration from decomposition with partial sloughing. This results in partial exposure of the anterior mandible and maxilla. These changes all appear consistent with postmortem and decomposition rather than trauma. Okay. There are no obvious intraoral injuries. A small amount of purge fluid is collected in the mouth. The lips are softened from decomposition and show loss of surface epithelium, but are otherwise unremarkable. The neck has a slender, symmetrical exterior contour without evidence of injury. Basically what they're saying here is doesn't look to be strangled. Wasn't, there was nothing really around the neck, so there was nothing tied around her neck. The cervical spine is easily mobilized due to decomposition, but is palpably stable. The larynx and trachea are palpably midline. The chest is symmetrical, and the chest wall is palpably stable. The breasts are normally developed, adolescent female without palpable masses. The abdomen is slightly distended due to postmortem tissue gas formation, but has a symmetrical external contour and shows no evidence of external injury. Once again, no injury to her torso. External genitalia are normally developed adolescent female with a closely trimmed pubic hair pattern. Speculum examination reveals no evidence of introidal or vaginal trauma, therefore she wasn't raped, no sexual assault. There appears to be a cervical cap type device within the vaginal vault. See below that. Once again, that's just her birth control. The perianal skin shows discoloration from decomposition is otherwise unremarkable. Upper and lower extremities are symmetrical and normally developed and show no apparent external trauma. An area of postmortem change on the left wrist at the radial side is about 4.5 centimeters by 1.5 centimeters, where there is splitting of the exposed dermis, which exposes underlying soft tissue. The margins of this area are smooth and the area is consistent with dehiscence of a surgical scar. Once again, this is where I believe she had some work done. There's no discoloration suggestive of antemortem hemorrhage. Epidermis from both hands has been previously lost from decomposition along with the fingernails. Toenails have also separated with macerated and sloughed plantar skin from both feet. The back is symmetrical and the spine is palpably stable at the midline. There is no visible trauma on the back. Once again, wasn't hurt on her back either. Okay, so that's basically what they're saying. Doesn't appear to be some kind of assault. A small stippled tattoo of the number 17 on the lateral right hip. Okay, well, they said she didn't have any tattoos. What is this? There is a vaguely defined longitudinal linear surgical scar on the ventral left wrist. Postmortem radiographic scan demonstrates an orthopedic plate and multiple screws in the distal left radius. Once again, they also said no scars. There's a scar right there. There's a few of them. Gotta love this. External evidence of injury. There is no apparent blunt, and then once again, keep that in mind, apparent blunt or penetrating injuries seen externally. Postmortem radiographic scan of the whole body also demonstrates no evidence of acute skeletal trauma. No broken bones. Basically, all they're saying is there's no external damage, and they didn't see any internal broken bones or anything. Doesn't mean there couldn't have been damage, right? We can't fully rule that out. Internal evidence of injury? None is what they're saying. Does that mean there was none? They've already been wrong on a few things. Can we take this? I would be very, very hesitant already at this point. So now we got to go and look at the interesting part, which is the lungs. Right lung weighs 100 grams, left lung weighs 110 grams. Pleural surfaces are smooth and the lungs are light maroon to gray tan. Okay. We're going to keep reading, but you're going to see. Where's the water? No anthracotic markings are seen. The lung parenchyma is moderately decomposed, soft and maroon in color. There are no apparent focal parenchymal lesions. Prominent tissue gas formation distorts the parenchymal architecture of both lungs. The larynx, trachea, and bronchi are patent and normally formed. Our mucosal surfaces are smooth, light gray tan. There's no apparent airway obstruction. Pulmonary arteries appear normally developed and patent throughout. They didn't mention water. She drowned, but where's the water? That's my question, first and foremost. Is that would also be increasing the weight of the lungs. Let's go to the next part, which we are going to look at the kidneys real quick. Right kidney weighs 50 grams and the left kidney weighs 70 grams. The capsules strip with ease and the cortical surfaces are smooth, softened, red-brown. Section reveals blurring of the parenchymal architecture from decomposition with some preservation of the expected pattern. Okay. Next part, urinary bladder is normally developed and empty. Shows maroon discoloration from decomposition, which means she had emptied her bladder. Does that mean maybe she ended up excreting urine before she died? Well, when you die, you excrete urine. You excrete, things like this. Not all of it's going to go, depending on your position, but based on her position, there's also a free flow of water. My guess is it probably came out. Okay, diva cup is found in the upper vaginal vault, containing a small amount of menstrual fluid, which means period. T-shaped plastic, if I'm not mistaken at least. Intrauterine device is also found within the endometrial cavity. Okay, let's continue. Where is the brain? Brain weighs 1,000 grams. There is severe decomposition of the brain with generalized softening and blurring of the external pattern of Geary and Sulci. Section reveals loss of definition of the internal parenchymal landmarks from decomposition. There's no evidence of intraparenchymal hemorrhage. Hemorrhaging does occur through suffocation, if I'm not mistaken. However, that being said, there's ways around it. There's a few ways around it. Now, this is the part I like right here, because, and I don't mean I like it as an, oh yeah, this is cool. No. This proves my point about some things here. So, we get a couple things we're going to get from this. So, detonate found in submerged vehicle which was recovered from inverted position in lake. A, postmortem changes consistent with prolonged water submersion. So, postmortem changes are consistent with that. Okay, so we get this. And then it's moderate postmortem decomposition. Okay. Now, the other part I like is also this part right here. Postmortem toxicology on liver tissue positive for ethanol. Possibly all or part from decomposition. Bam, right there. Already basically saying, yeah, she wasn't drinking. And if she did, it was very little, and it would have had to have been like recent. She was dead a lot longer than that, which means this is all from decomposition. And that's the entire autopsy report. See what I mean? There's some parts here that are just really, really funky. Now, this is where things are going to get interesting here. All these different ones in here are all saying some different stuff about how long it takes, but it metabolizes. Oh, and what I mean by what is chloroform. Another one we're going to be looking at is carbon monoxide. I think chloroform is pretty likely. It's readily available, not to mention in the water. Some of you might be already wondering, what do you mean by in the water? No. See, that's the thing. Chloroform, when there's chlorine, that's where we need to figure this out. This is where this matters. Chlorinated water gives off chloroform. Not a whole lot, but it gives some. Her body's found in there. However, that wouldn't have been enough to knock her out. Now, you can probably get where I'm going with this. If there's an air pocket in there, she could have had chloroform exposure. But she would have already had to have been in a lake. And if there's an air pocket, that means it would have already had to have flipped, and she would have had to have been alive at that point. That's true. She wasn't bound. She wasn't gagged. Could she have been trapped, though? You can see where I'm going with this. She could have been possibly trapped. And that's where we have to go and really investigate the vehicle itself. In that part, we have to really think about how her body was positioned. If she was trapped in there somehow, is it possible? See where I'm going with this? This gets a little weird, but regardless, she didn't commit suicide. No, the likelihood of that, I mean, I believe you'd be winning the lottery, probably this 1.5 billion or whatever it's at right now, I think. Probably be winning that probably 2-3 times minimum. Yeah, probably more than that, to be honest. But it's disgusting that this is overlooked. People are just taking up the narrative and saying, yeah, no, the narrative's right. It's clearly not. Okay, but let's continue. We're going to go into this right here. I haven't read this all the way through, but here's your metabolism, hours of exposure. This is for a 25-gram female. And that was just for them. That was for mice, keep in mind. We had 3 different inhalation exposure regimens during the study they did here. And they check, per hour, and then they're going to take a look at per gram in the liver. So you got the 2-hour. Great metabolism. You start seeing this breaks down slowly. Now, there's an equation for this you can go get from it. I'm absolutely sure of it. Okay? But this is the part to take from it. Check out the graph. It's a little bizarre. As you see how chloroform is specifically taking down these mice. Increase the dosage, and this could do the same thing to teenage female, teenage male, an adult, a child. It could do it to all these age ranges. And they break it down this way. You get your exposure, hours, and it does some weird things. Now they take a look at the concentration. You got 30 ppm for 2 hours. That gives you 60 ppm per hour. Can't tell if it's squared or not. Then you get 20 at 90, so it just continually doubles. And then you do 0 at 6 hours exposed. Nothing right across the board. So there's your control. 6 hours of exposure, 10 in the concentration, you get 60 ppm minus hours squared, I think it is. I don't know what that is up there, the exponent. 6 with 30, so 180, 6 with 90, that's 540. Then they go on, they retest it again. 30 at 12 hours, 360. At 18 hours, and they just decide, yeah, we're just going to jump it up. Let's check the control. You get 0 concentration, you're going to get 0. 18 hours of exposure on there. Then you get your 10 concentration at 18 hours. So very, very little exposure. And now you're getting 180. So the equivalent of this is 2 hours of exposure at 90 concentration. You're getting the same thing as 18 hours at 10. Was this a long haul? Is this a short haul? You're also getting the same thing as 30 concentration for 6 hours. So you can see how the multiplication goes straight across the board. It all makes sense. This is where you need to go and see what happens to the brain, because the longer exposure to this, the more damage. The higher concentration initially is going to cause more initial damage. That's the thing about chloroform. It does different, it works on different rates and different concentration levels, things like this. You're just trying to knock somebody out. It takes about 5 minutes, I believe it, just full. You can knock somebody out just holding the concentrated dosage on the cloth. That can work. You have to have it directly on them, and that's all they're breathing in. Oh, hey, how's it going, Justice? So, this is the thing here. It's a little interesting when it comes down to it. It doesn't take a whole lot to cause the damage you need. But it depends on how you want to use it. That's basically how the chloroform aspect of this works. Okay, and this is where you got to get into body weight. Once again, I discussed that last week. Body weight does matter. And then you're going to be looking at the liver. You can see how this goes in. Like I said, I'll have in the timeline and all sorts of this stuff that I'm going to be putting together between now and hopefully I'll have that done by next Friday, so I can have that up for you guys to go and check out so we can go over it. Once again, anything you guys have got for the timeline, maybe you guys found something else to go and take a look at, post it in the comments below. Greatly appreciate it. If you leave it in chat, I'll probably miss it, so I won't be able to probably check it out, but thank you if you do that either way. So this is chloroform. There's something there. I really feel like there's some chloroform in this case somehow. It feels like it. There's something that knocked her out. I don't think she went back there on her own, and I don't think she floated back there. It's a weird way to float, but let's continue. The other one is carbon monoxide. So, one thing to note about this. How long does it take for carbon monoxide to leave your body? It takes a full day for carbon monoxide to leave your body. This is where you got to see, where does it like to go and latch onto? And did they check it? If it doesn't latch to the kidney, it latches to anything else, they didn't check for it. Didn't do any blood work. They didn't check the lungs, and carbon monoxide in your body leaves through your lungs when you breathe out. But there's a delay in eliminating carbon monoxide. Let's take a look. How much faster does carbon monoxide bind to hemoglobin? So let's just read this here. Carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin, less oxygen gets transported to body tissues and vital organs such as the brain and heart. Bond between carbon monoxide and hemoglobin is approximately 250 times stronger than the bond between oxygen and hemoglobin.